Culture, Germany versus the United States, HSC 5038, Tyler Murray. Sex culture around the world is different almost everywhere you go. From the United States to the furthest reaches of Asia, nearly everywhere you go there will be subtle things that make their sex culture unique. In this short presentation, there will be a comparison between the United States sex culture and that of Europe with a specific emphasis on German sex culture. The comparison will involve sex education, premarital sexual activity, marriage, and family. What is sexuality? Sexuality is the capacity for sexual feelings or a person's sexual orientation or preference as provided by Google definitions. Culture, as defined by Google, is that of arts and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively. It is important for us to know these definitions to help have a better understanding of what sex culture is. Sex culture is how society views sex, family, and marriage. Sex education. Where does sex education take place? In Germany, sex education takes place in schools and is mandated by law. Also, Germany visits the subject yearly and starts in grades as low as kindergarten. In the United States, this is much different. Sex education takes place in some schools, however, the government does not mandate that sex education be taught. So students at those schools that are left to have their parents teach them subject that could be quite uncomfortable. Also in the United States, sex education is usually taught between the ages of 7 and 12 and only revisited if a health course is taught in high school. Sex education continued. In the United States, almost all sex education is based off of an abstinence-only method for sex education, mainly because the government funds abstinence-based sex education. So many of the youth don't learn things that really go on and happen in the bedroom, or about safety. This causes major issues when teens start having sex because it's trial by error, and they may not know what to do. In Germany, students are taught everything from pleasure to STD prevention, and sex education is looked at as a tool to prepare students so that unwanted pregnancies and STDs do not occur. When the students are younger, they learn about where babies come from and the basics of anatomy before puberty starts. That way, they know what is to come. Sex education continued. In Germany, the sex education is taught by teachers in a more open format. Students do role-play activities and interact with each other while learning about sex. This helps knock down the walls between sexes because everyone is learning about both sexes equally. In the United States, this couldn't be much more different. The schools that teach sex education are either taught by a teacher or a healthcare teacher. Also, the sexes were split up in my personal experiences, leaving questions about the opposite sex unanswered. For the schools that don't teach sex education, the subject is left with the parents or guardians of those students. And if the parents or guardians of those students don't have the talk until later, they may not know what to do when presented an opportunity or an experience that they may not know. Premarital sex. In the 21st century, age at puberty has decreased and age at marriage has increased, creating a greater gap between sexual maturity and marriage than ever before. In Western countries, sex before marriage has become the norm, and it is statistically less normal for a woman to be a virgin before marriage than a non-virgin. In Germany, sex before marriage is a much more common thing that happens in Germany, mainly because sex isn't looked upon as a sacred event, but as a healthy part of growing up in relationships. Sex before marriage is still looked at as a bad thing in the States, even though it is not followed by many young adults. Seeing how the average teens have sex around 16, and also in the U.S. has the most unplanned pregnancies among teens. In Germany, the average age that people start having sex is 16, along with the United States. However, those teens are much more prepared due to the sex education curriculum that Germany presents to their students. Premarital sex continued. Many of the baby boomer generation in the United States still think that sex before marriage is a terrible thing. But this is beginning to change in the United States due to the influence of media and most of that generation dying off. Today, the media and social media have a heavy influence on what kids will end up doing. The portrayal of homosexuality on TV, along with teens having sex in reality on TV and sitcoms, influence the population tremendously. In Germany, like stated in the previous slide, premarital sex is a common thing in developing healthy relationships in Germany. The media in the United States does have an influence in Germany as well, with music videos and other forms of TV portraying sex. However, Germany does censor what is allowed to be viewed on the internet and YouTube. Premarital sexual activities. The United States has the highest amount of teen pregnancies per 1,000 women, ages 15 and 19. The United States teen pregnancy rate is almost 3 times that of Germany and France, and 4 times that of the Netherlands. The United States also has much higher STD rates. However, they have dropped significantly in more recent years. Out of the European countries, Germany is third among STD rates, but the numbers are significantly lower than the United States. Teen pregnancy in the United States is so high because of the way that sex education is taught, abstinence only. So, teens don't learn about protection or contraception, and there is no healthcare system in the United States, so people who can't afford healthcare will not receive contraceptive medicine, such as birth control. Also, STD prevention in Germany is much better because of people know what to do when they contract an STD. In the States, some people may not even know where to go if they have an STD, or may not even know what an STD is unless they were taught in school. And some may never have been. Marriage and family. In 2015, there were 400,000 new marriages in Germany, according to their stats, versus the United States with 2.118 million, according to the CDC. In percentages, that is for the U.S., 0.6% of the population, and for Germany, 0.4% of the population, who was married last year in 2015. In Germany, 2015, they had 163,335 divorces, compared to the United States with 3.6 divorces per 100 or 1,000 people, according to the CDC. Marriage and family continued. In Germany, the average age that someone has their first marriage is at 32, where the CDC reports that the average age for first-time marriages in the United States is 28. However, I think this stat is a little skewed because in rural areas such as Tennessee, the average age of marriage is much less, at more around 18 to 20 years old and directly after high school. So there's much more of a difference between rural areas in the United States than Germany as a whole, where I was at in Florida, where I grew up. The average marriage age is around 25 to 28, like the CDC reports, which is a much closer gap between Germany and the United States. The number of people per household has been dropping throughout recent years in Germany. For example, from 2002 to 2012, the average household in Germany dropped from 2.13 to 2 people. And in the United States has relatively stayed the same, with around 2 to 2.5 people per household. Another thing that is different in Germany is the southern part of Germany has much bigger families than northern Germany. And the average household in the south would probably be closer to 3 or 4 people per household rather than 2 people per household. My experience in Germany. I have been living in Germany since February, so I've had a first-hand look at German culture. And what I've noticed, the South has much bigger families than the North. Also, many young adults don't leave home to work or go to school here. They stay in their house and just have jobs. Another thing I've noticed is since the age of consent and drinking age are so low, 14 and 16, you have to be very careful when you go out, because some of the girls in there are only 16 years old. Also, when Germany being a heavy smoking nation, girls are usually 3 years younger than they look due to smoking. From what I've understand when I go out is you have to be very careful about what you do and who you talk to in Germany, because you have to find out their age. You could be talking to a 16-year-old that looks like she's 25 just because she smokes. And in German culture, that's okay, but from the United States culture where I'm from, that is not. In conclusion, the United States and Germany have some very close similarities, but do also have some extreme differences when it comes to sex culture. Sex education in the United States doesn't allow for an actual education to be taught because of the abstinence-based education that federal government funds. Germany and most other European nations follow a much more open approach to sex education, and instead of being taught roughly once a kid, it is more of a continual education every year since kindergarten. Also, instead of being taught that abstinence is the only way, they are taught about everything from pleasure to STDs. Another key difference between the United States and Germany is when it comes to sex education, it is required by law for schools to teach sex education in Germany. Whereas in the United States, there are some instances where students don't have sex education. In addition to their sex education programs, all these countries have social programs and provide youth with sexual health services and contraception. The United States desperately needs to abandon abstinence-only approach to sex education and develop a comprehensive sex education program, and should be looked to these countries for inspiration. Social programs providing sexual health service to teens similar to the ones in each of these countries should be developed to supplement the new education programs. I think that the future of the United States needs to adapt a more sexual education program similar to that of Germany. And if that happens, teen pregnancy rate will drop along with STDs. In order for this to happen, it has to start at the federal level to mandate sexual education be taught in a more open manner instead of the abstinence-only method that has not been working in the United States. Sex in the United States has not to be looked at as a sacred thing, but more of a normal function of healthy relationships. In my experience since February, I've noticed that sex is just another part of life, and really is what we're made to do. Our anatomy shows us that, and we in the United States need to stop putting sex and sex culture on this pedestal and just realize it's a part of life. If the United States adapts a more sex education process similar to Germany, teen pregnancy rates will drop, STDs will drop, and overall health of the nation will probably rise. After all, more people having sex increases morale and activity. Also, the United States needs to think of sex as an open thing rather than behind closed doors. Because in Germany and Europe, of what I've noticed so far, is it's an open subject that can be talked about regardless of what happens. And in the United States, it's a behind closed door and only behind with those parties involved. If the United States wants to raise more awareness about STDs and help the health of the nation by preventing teen pregnancy and unplanned pregnancies, the United States must adapt a sex education similar to that of Germany. Thanks for watching this presentation. The end.